Good morning, everyone. If I could ask you to take your seat, I would like to call to order the Ferndale City Council meeting for Monday, March the 14th. Please stand for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance, and if you would, immediately following the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing. I'd like to have a moment of silence for the victims of the hurricane and the tsunami in Japan, so if you would remain seated for just a moment. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Baker. Here. Galloway. Here. Lennon. Here. Piana. Here. And Mayor Coulter.
Here, thank you. Our first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Anything from the consent agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda in its entirety, Your Honor.
Support.
Actually, I have a question, being the new guy up here. Is this where I pull something from the consent agenda, or do I wait till we get to consent agenda?
Wait till we get to consent agenda.
Thank you very much for putting up with the new guy. Thank you very much. Any discussion on the agenda? All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry, that was moved by...
Okay, thank you.
Moved by Lennon, second by Baker.
Thank you very much. Councilmembers Baker? Yes. Yes. Galloway?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Piana? Yes. Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you very much. Our first order of business is a presentation, and this is the Employee Service Awards. This is actually the 59th consecutive year that we have honored those Ferndale City employees that are marking significant milestones in their tenure here with us. And we have a number of employees marking service awards this evening. And I know some of the employees are here with us, and so I'm going to read by how many years of service you've had, the employees, and then if you're here, I'd like to ask you to come up, and I have an award for you. All right, so we have a number of employees celebrating 10 years with the City of Ferndale. Dennis Barr, Jason Collette, Jack Pesha, John Schwal, Christina Shepard-Decius, Sean Slocum, Michael Szymanski, and Carol Willis. If you are one of those individuals, come on up. Give them a round of applause. Christina, congratulations on 10 years. Very nice. Thank you. And Carol, congratulations.
All right. Pictures?
Great job, you guys. We have 5 employees celebrating 15 years of service with the City of Ferndale. Rocky Cooper, Jake Fergitis, Donald Gaddis, Janine Ingram, and Vincent Palazzolo. And Janine, I believe, is here from our personnel faculty.
Bowl and a China.
2 employees celebrating 20 years of service, Sergeant Baron Brown and William Lucas in our Public Works Department. All right, thank you, Baron. We have 2 employees celebrating 25 years of service, David Beveridge, an engineer, and John Fall, a detective. And I don't know if either of them are here this evening, but we offer them our congratulations. Thank you. 30 years of service. For a long time, our children's librarian, and for a while, our head librarian at City Hall, Mary Trenner, is here. Mary. Two people have you beat, though, Mary. Oh, there you go. Thank you. And then celebrating 35 years of service with the City of Ferndale, both in the Public Works Department, Michael McClellan and Ennis Simon. And I don't believe that either of them are here this evening, but we give them a round of applause as well. Congratulations to all of our employees. Thank you. All right, our next presentation is the Ferndale Public Schools. Hi.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Stilger. I am the Communications Specialist for Ferndale Public Schools. I'd also like to introduce to one of our board members. Karen Toomey is here also with me. I have some good news and I have some events that are coming up. We would like to say congratulations to John Dozier. He is a senior at Ferndale High School and signed this week with Siena Heights to play football and track. He's on scholarship and has a 3.4 GPA with Ferndale, so the athletic department is very proud of him and wishes him luck. Chavez Ferris this week finished third in the state in wrestling for the 171-pound division. That makes him all-state as a junior, so we look forward to having him for one more year. This weekend, Oklahoma is the musical performing at Ferndale High School. They opened this past weekend, but they also have performances this upcoming Friday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday at 3 p.m. for the matinee. The performances are at Ferndale High School in the auditorium at 881 Pinecrest. Tickets are $6 for adults, $4 for students and senior citizens, and $3 for children under 12. The whole community is welcome. You can also buy tickets at the door and at AJ's, at the Kulik Center, and the Pleasant Ridge Rec Center. On March 24th, the Ferndale Education Foundation is having their annual fundraising party at Boogie Fever. It is from 6 to 10 p.m. on a Thursday. For $30 a ticket, you will have fun with the DJ and dancing, live and silent auctions, dinner from House Bayou, dessert from Treat Dreams, and the big event of the evening is we are raffling off a 2011 Ford Fusion. So for $20, you can get a raffle ticket and have your chance to win the grand prize, which also has a $18,000 cash prize equivalent for those that don't know that. We have a second prize of $500, third prize of $250, and a fourth and fifth prize of $100. Tickets are on sale, raffle tickets are on sale all over the community at the Pleasant Ridge Rec Center, the Ferndale Chamber office, at University High School, Ferndale Middle School, Roosevelt, Coolidge, Kennedy, Jefferson, and Taft, as well as with all the FEF trustees, including Councilwoman Baker. So,
Buy them from me. I have the winning ticket.
you can buy them from me too, though. Yeah. I have tickets here for anyone in the audience who's interested. We will be selling right up until we draw the winning ticket on March 24th. So, right now we have about 700 tickets sold. Our goal is to sell a minimum of 1,800 to raffle off the car. So if everyone can spend $20, you have a good chance of winning. We also have, we're spreading the news about an upcoming event called Grandparents Who Are Raising Grandchildren. It is March 21st at the Berkeley Senior Center from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Anyone who's interested can call 248-396-8236. We also are having some upcoming meetings for anyone who is a parent of a 5th or 6th grader interested in Ferndale Middle School. To find out more information, you can go to the meetings on Tuesday, March 15th at Coolidge Intermediate School at 6:30 p.m. and Wednesday, March 16th at Kennedy Elementary School, also at 6:30 p.m. We would also like to remind the community that we send out weekly newsletters that look like this. They contain information from all of our school buildings and upcoming events that are happening in the community and with the schools. To sign up for the newsletter that we send out on Fridays, You can email fpsfanout@ferndaleschools.org or visit our website, ferndaleschools.org/districtnews. That's it from us.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Oh, yes, please come on up, Karen.
Hi, I actually am just so grateful to be here tonight. As you know, we always have schedule conflicts between our two bodies, and it's such a pleasure to be able to be here and from another democratically elected body of government. And just, I know we share a lot of the same concerns and issues right now, and it's sometimes a thankless job, so I'm really happy that I was able to come here, welcome you, Mr. Mayor, and say happy birthday, and share in some of the gratitude of these fine people that have served our city. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming. All right, our next order of business is a presentation by the 8 Mile Boulevard Association. As many of you might know, Ferndale is an active participant in the 8 Mile Boulevard Association. I am its newest board member, I understand.
Yes, you are.
And Tammy Salisbury is the executive director. Tammy, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been a little while. I, in the past, have been providing to Bob Bruner. That's okay. To Bob Bruner, and then he was providing him in his liaison reports. So it's great to finally be back here in front of this group and just kind of tell you about a lot of the exciting activities of the 8 Mile Boulevard Association. Our organization was formed in 1993, for those of you who don't know, by the 13 communities in the 3 counties that bordered 8 Mile Road. There were issues that were plaguing 8 Mile Road, and they felt collectively they would be better suited to deal with those issues rather than independently going alone. So the 8 Mile Boulevard Association was born. We were formed intentionally as a 501c3 organization because we could tap into foundation dollars and other resources that the public and private sector couldn't tap into. I would say a big chunk of activity that we do is business retention and business attraction. We continue to develop programs to improve the aesthetic and economic character of 8 Mile Road. Our mission is obviously to revitalize and promote the 8 Mile transportation, business, and residential corridor by linking the efforts of the public and private sectors. Our district boundaries are quite long. We cover a 27-mile stretch, so it's I-94 to the east and I-275 to the west. That makes up, obviously I've said, the 13 communities in 3 counties. There's approximately 1,700 businesses and properties that are located along that stretch. About 100,000 cars on average traverse 8 Mile Road. So we think there's lots of consumers there for those buildings that sit vacant. And like I said, we're a 27-mile stretch. Our board of directors is made up of the chief elected official from each community, so that is why Mayor Coulter was appointed in his new position. As well, we have 15 businesses that serve on the board that are listed in that sheet that I passed out to you, and then the director of MDOT. So we have quite a large board. And then I'm going to go to the next slide. Our annual operating budget is just over $200,000 a year, and about 50% of that is made up from the communities and counties that border 8 Mile Road. And then 25% comes from the businesses and the residents along 8 Mile that are members of our association and pay dues to be participants. And then 25% comes from our annual luncheon. I know some of you have been at our luncheon. It's quite a fanfare. It's been designated the pre-Mackinac event, which we are grateful to be called. And we're expecting upwards of 1,000 people this year. So we're excited about that. We actually have more sponsors than we have seen in years past, which is, in this economy, we're very excited. That must be a testament to the event. So you'll all be getting invitations here in coming weeks. And actually, Councilwoman Baker at one point was a participant on the panel, and it was very excited. She had, the young folks added a very nice dynamic to that. Yeah.
Who's the speaker this year?
Pardon me?
Who's the speaker this year?
It's the big four. It's the typical panel that we have had in the past, but we do have, and I hesitate to bring this up, Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley is also going to be making remarks at the event. So so we'll see how that dynamic goes. But I will talk about additional programming, anything that we do, our facade improvement program, our quarter keeper program, which I'm going to talk about specifically in a little more detail, is 100% grant funded. So, you know, a lot of what we do, the basic operating budget just allows us to do the basic things that we do, but any additional programming is 100% grant reliant. So I just want to go through a few of our programs. This is really a full list of our programs. The facade improvement program, I'll talk a little more in detail in a future slide, as well as the quarter keeper program. I talked about our luncheon. We have a golf outing fundraiser. We do have a golf golf course on 8 Mile Road in Livonia, the Whispering Willows. We took advantage of that, made a deal with the city of Livonia, and we have a fundraiser there that has actually been very, very successful and has grown, and we're in our 6th year of doing that golf outing. We have the Clean the D initiative, which is very exciting. It's set for Saturday, May 7th this year, and we've partnered with high schools. We partnered with Brother Rice High School and Pershing High School and brought these kids together and their parents to do community service projects. We also posted our project on Believe in Detroit, and we've gotten over 150 volunteers that have signed up through the Believe in Detroit campaign website. So we're looking at about 500 people. 8 Mile Boulevard Association, our whole staff, Alan Weber and myself, will be coordinating all the projects on 8 Mile Road. We usually have an average of 20. And what we do is we paint buildings, we clean up debris, we plant gardens, I mean, you name it. Last year, Alan came up with a great idea to paint all the fire hydrants on 8 Mile Road. We're about half done, so we're hoping to finish the fire hydrant painting this year in this Clean the D initiative. We also formed last April a 501c2 title holdings company, which will allow us to now acquire land. So our intent is to get that up and going. We're still in the kind of exploration stages as far as funding, but our goal would be to take the vacant properties that are obsolete on 8 Mile Road and look at funding to demolish those structures and to find suitable uses and development for those projects. If nothing else, at least to have the site clean and development ready. So we also have 36 perennial gardens in the median. If you recall, there were 5 gardens built with the bridge that didn't have a maintenance plan. MDOT did not plan for maintenance of those 5 gardens that were built. So the 8 Mile Boulevard Association stepped up. We figured out a way to incorporate it into our budget, and we're working diligently to get those gardens weeded and get them back into shape, because there was 2 full years that they were not maintained. So we're working on that, but we think we're getting ahead of it. But yeah, so there's 36 perennial gardens, and then we have 11 city identification signs, which you can see at the top there, that we insure and make sure that they can be maintained. In addition, last year we pulled all of the community DPW directors, which Byron Fotides was a participant in, to deal with median lawn cutting. 8 Mile on average was getting 3 mows, which we just felt was unacceptable, because at any given time we were looking at 3 to 4 feet of grass. So we pulled all the DPW directors and all of the key people at MDOT, and actually MDOT agreed with us that let's get the communities to participate. So they actually took the funding and disseminated it out to 2 communities that stepped up. Southfield oversees all of the lawn cutting from DeQuinder all the way west to Grand River, and Warren takes all of the lawn cutting and oversees it from DeQuinder east. So it's worked out really well. There was dollars to administer the lawn cutting, and we got 12 last year. So that is adequate for what we need. Southfield actually awarded 14 additional mows, which was not necessary. So we're going to talk to them about burning the grass. But it's a work in progress, and it's a lot better than having 3 feet of grass, because it's tough for us to go out to businesses and tell them to mow their lawn, and then them to point to the median and say, well, you know, the state's not doing their job. So needless to say, that's a big success. We also have a beautification award that we do conduct every July. We give out 20 beautification plaques, and it just like blight can be contagious, so can beautification. It's created some spirited competition along 8 Mile Road with some neighboring businesses trying to outdo one another, which we're excited about. And we give 80 honorable mentions. Those that are, you know, have been close, we make sure that we nudge them and acknowledge them that they've done a great job, but they just didn't make it this year. So like I said, it's kind of created a spirit of competition. And then we're also pursuing a heritage route designation from the state of Michigan. Because 8 Mile is the baseline for the state, we think that's an untold story. So we think that there is you know, an opportunity for us to tell that story and you know, get a designation for 8 Mile Road, which would bring money into the corridor for enhancements. So we're working on that, but we're not sure where the whole heritage route program in the state and the funding is what's going to happen. So we're kind of in a wait and see approach right now. So I said I'd talk about the facade improvement program. Any business on 8 Mile in our 27-mile stretch, so it's actually 54 miles of frontage, we match dollar for dollar up to $10,000 to improve their facade. In addition, we provide design assistance. We have guidelines that they have to adhere to. So you're not going to be seeing 6-foot fences that we pay for on 8 Mile. You're not going to see you know, we only fund quality designs. And we typically work, we actually always work with the local community to make sure that permitting's pulled and that the local community has signed off on any design that we come up with. So, yes.
Have you done any in Ferndale?
We actually just finished a design for XL Restoration. And we've usually retained the services of, gosh, all of a sudden I'm drawing a blank of the architect. But it's the design firm, big one in Detroit, and it's done Rainey Hamilton and Anderson. But this time we actually used Oakland County Main Streets program to do the design work. So we're waiting for them. They're doing FLAX, XLAX. He's doing 2 businesses, so I'm not sure when he's going to actually go into construction. But yes. And then, so anyways, any business within our district is eligible to apply for the facade improvement program and be considered, but they do have to be a member, and it's $108 a year, so I think it's a pretty good trade-off. So, anyways, with that being said, I wanted to kind of give you some examples. This is Economy Appliance in Hazel Park. The bottom is obviously before. You may recall driving by that lovely yellow building, and we think that that is just paint. On the top there, and what a difference and a transformation some new windows and some paint can make. And we'll go to the next one. This is actually Burger King at DeQuinder and 8 Mile Road. It was a complete renovation. Interestingly, we just met with some folks from Subway who are buying the old Arby's that was vacant across the street, and they said because they saw the investment that was being made through our facade improvement program, they decided on that location to take that Arby's and convert it into a Subway. So if you've been by, they're putting $500,000 in to put a Subway. So we're excited to see that. That happen. And then the last one here is in Detroit. This is just a small little lounge, and it was a major transformation here. And it was interesting to see the mental transformation for the property owner of not only wanting to maintain their site more, but kind of nudging their neighbors and really kind of taking a look at the area around. So it's exciting to see what the facade improvement program is doing. And this is we've done. Since we formed the program in 2008, we've done over 20 facades. So we're excited, and we're doing this all out of our operating budget now. We got initial money from the Community Foundation in 2008 to get it going, but now everything we do comes out of our operating budget. So the Corridor Keeper program, I just want to briefly talk about this because we did get a grant award from the Community Foundation for $65,000 for 2 years, and that has been dealing with code enforcement issues along 8 Mile Road. We really come in as a code compliance person and work with the code enforcement departments, but primarily we're trying to come to the businesses and find a solution to those code violations. So be it our facade improvement program or our cleanup, we come and paint a building, help find a donation for some issues that they may have in the exterior, if their parking lot needs to be painted, striped, those types of things. So it's really kind of a resource, and the code enforcement departments have been excited about it because at least it's a solution rather than coming after people with a ticket, which many of them, sometimes it puts them out of business. So we're excited about how this program, how much excitement it has derived, because there's several different groups. City of Warren DDA wants to duplicate this program. The Cornerstone District in Southfield wants to duplicate this program, and some different groups in Detroit want to duplicate this program. So that's pretty exciting. You can go on to the next slide. And I talked just briefly about the car. You can see the vehicle there. It's actually dressed up with our logo, and it says the 8 Mile Corridor Keeper. The City of Warren donated that vehicle to us for the period of our grant term, and they insure it and pay for all the maintenance, which we're grateful for. Then EMU developed the GIS software. We actually have a software application that we have data on every single property on 8 Mile Road. We know who the taxpayer is. We know who the occupant is. We know where to find them. We know where to talk to them. We have pictures of each of their sites. So each property, business and property on 8 Mile has been visited at least twice in the past 20 months. So if they have violations, they've been visited many more times. You can go on to the next slide. So in summary, I just wanted to talk about in the initial year of the program, we found out that 53% of the businesses on 8 Mile had one or more violations. So in year 2 of the program, we're finding then that about 25% of the businesses currently have at least one or more violations. So that means that we've made an impact, we like to think. So this is exciting. One of the things that we did do is recognize those businesses that are complying, because we thought just going after those that have violations, we really should be recognizing those that are doing the right thing. So they get an official letter that says they're a revitalization partner. It's kind of a feel-good thing. And some of them, excitingly enough, are are framing them and putting them in their lobby, which is exciting. Anyways, those that are not in compliance, like I said, have been paid a visit or repeated visits to remedy those issues. And as the corridor keepers out, they also are promoting the facade improvement program. And just a note, you'll see the back of the vehicle there with all the signs. We've removed 11,000 signs off 8 Mile in 20 months. Illegal signage. So we're working right now with Detroit PD and some of the other police departments right now to find a crackdown on this because it is illegal. It's a state trunk line. It's a $1,250 fine per sign. It's not being enforced, but it should be. So and this is just 8 Mile Road. I mean, you see those signs. You all clear up to Clarkston, all the way down to Detroit, you see these signs. So we're really looking at a long-term solution to address those. So anyways, the last thing I want to talk about is virtual 8 Mile Road. This is something very new to us. We just launched in January. It's actually very exciting technological advance. I even feel a little behind on this. They had to explain a lot of this to me, but it's really exciting because it lists all of our members on this program, and we can populate. I'm going to have Alan here populate some of the things it can do. But each of our members are highlighted, and I'll just, if you want to pick an industry type, banking, what it does is populates all of our member businesses that are in the banking industry, and you can, click on that, and it'll take you right to their website. You don't have to click on it, so you won't be able to get back. And then, in addition, you can close out of this. In addition, all of the studies that were done by MDOT, we ended up, well, actually, let's do the land use. Go up a little. Yeah, land use. If you zoom in, you can see all the different land uses as far as the zoning. We got to make the land use map a little bigger, I noticed, but it shows all the land uses along 8 Mile Road. And we think this is a nice business attraction tool for a company that may be overseas or out of state and be able to see all this. The exciting thing is you can go down to available properties. This is really exciting. Is you can find all the available properties on 8 Mile by industry type along 8 Mile Road through this. So, yeah, if you want to zoom in, that shows in Ferndale available properties. And then if he clicks on one of them, it populates a picture of the property and all the details and the listing price. So we're really excited about this. I mean, it does a whole lot more. It provides all the bike paths along 8 Mile Road. It provides all the bus stops and the bus times on 8 Mile Road. I mean, it has a lot of detail. So if you get a chance, look at it. But we're really excited about this particular building off this. So anyways, with that being said, I will answer any questions you may have. But again, thank you for having me here.
Tammy, thank you so much for coming. It's always good to see you. And anyone on council have any questions?
Yeah, through the chair, just a question. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah. I wonder, your virtual 8 Mile Road, who did you partner with to get that done? Was that like a
it was Lunatech.
Planning school?
Lunatech Designs. They're based out of Plymouth, and they've done a lot of stuff for chambers, and I think they actually did something for WA3.
I was hoping you were going to say it was a planning school that did it for free.
Lunatech also did the Downtown Development Authority's available property, and also Google Mapped them, and also the WA3, you're correct.
Yes.
So hopefully we can somehow link them in some way.
They are linked. A lot of where they intersect, they're all linked, and you can actually see the 3Ds. I didn't even pull it up, but actually a lot of our businesses right now are in the process of having 3D models of their buildings done. Belmont Shopping Center is already done, and I'll let you go out and look at it yourself because it's hard to get and it'll take a long time to get there. But that's really interesting because they can even have virtual tours of their buildings and their services. So this is really neat to build on this. And like I said, it elevates you in a Google search. So these businesses, it elevates them in a search to the top. So it's kind of exciting.
Thank you very much. This is great.
Thanks.
I have a question for you, Tim. Yeah, just one of the projects near and dear to our heart is the Gateway project, and I just wondered if you had any updates.
Actually, I have. I actually talked to Redico this morning.
And for those who don't know, that's at 8 Mile and Woodward, right next to the State Fair property, where there's a development.
Yes, development project. Redico is the company that's been retained to be the developers now, which is very new. That's maybe in the last 2 to 3 months that they've been retained. If you recall, General Growth Properties was the original developer, and they kind of fell into close to bankruptcy issue. So anyways, I talked to them this morning, and they are meeting with Myers on Wednesday. If Myers is a go, the whole project is a go, because the Detroit Pension Board has released funds to build. So this is CIA, one of the first, well, the first CIA, which is the Corridor Improvement Authority Act that will be utilized on 8 Mile Road. So we're really hopeful that Myers signs on, because that's kind of the make it or break it for this project. And interestingly, I said, you know, well, let's get that light rail to your site, and they indicated, well, we would love to have it close, but unfortunately they're relying, the deal that they gave Myers, they're really relying on all of the square footage they need to lease out. So we're going to look at the mower shop and the DeLito Motel as maybe the point, or even the corner as being a point, because I know that the goal is to eventually take light rail, not to end at 8 Mile Road. It just really doesn't make much sense, but it's just my opinion.
Is that project also dependent on brownfield credits that may be in jeopardy now?
No, it's the site's clean. Yeah, no, the site's ready to go. It used to be a residential community for those that have been here, grew up like me. I grew up in Ferndale. It was nice to hear the Ferndale High School school's presentation. But you know, I think that I'm optimistic, and Myers is late as June of last year made a commitment publicly saying that they were still interested in this site. So we're keeping our fingers crossed. But if this goes through, my understanding is within 12 months you'll see activity and things going on. And I think their plan was to open in 2012. So yeah. So we'll keep you posted on that one.
Thank you, Tammy. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. All right. Our next order of business. Mr. Ray Riggs. Is Mr. Riggs here? I'm sorry, I don't know what you look like, sir. There he is, a consultant from SEMCOG, who is going to give us a presentation on the Ferndale Hazel Park Shared Services Initiative. Mr. Riggs, how are you, sir?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
In fact, what I'd like to do is just, Councilwoman Piana has played a very active role in helping get this project going, helping to find the grant. So, Councilwoman, do you want to introduce Mr. Riggs and the project that we're going to talk about?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're actually here to present a contract, which means that we've made significant progress in terms of our timeline of looking at, will this marriage between our fire departments actually work? Just because you say you want to make it work doesn't actually mean it will financially make sense down the road. So I learned of the Michigan Municipal League's shared service initiatives through a SEMCOG training that I went to as an elected official. And I got connected to the State Treasury Department, and they said that they were coming together to create the Shared Services Initiative back in August. And I started to learn about it and realized that Ferndale would have been the first city under this program. And so I'm really glad that you're here. And I've been participating in these meetings up front. I've stepped away a little bit to let them do the work. But we've also had and his name is, I'm forgetting his name, but there's been a council member in Hazel Park who was part of the upfront conversations as well. But we're trying to step away so that the committee can actually make progress without political interference. Thank you, and I'm really glad to see you tonight.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Have you all received via email the report with the attachments and everything? Okay.
Yes, we have it.
Good.
It's on the city website as well. Madam Clerk, right? Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
as
so
part
it's
of the
available to
council
residents on the website as well, yes.
Okay, then I'll briefly go over the report to get you up to speed and let the citizens that are here know what's going on. But basically what the committee is recommending is that the city councils of the cities of Ferndale and Hazel Park approve a resolution similar to the model resolution provided by the Michigan Municipal League Foundation to contract Emergency Services Consulting International for a study on fire department consolidation. Now, with the shared services program that the councilwoman was speaking of, it was instituted by the state in conjunction with the Michigan Municipal League, and it is now administered by the Michigan Municipal League Foundation. And what it does is it encourages consolidation to occur between communities in a very specific way. It was instituted under the Granholm administration, but is being continued under the Schneider administration through the Michigan Municipal League Foundation. And one of the biggest roadblocks that communities that have difficulties in budgets, which is virtually every community in Michigan, is putting out the the large expenditure to get an adequate study conducted to see if a consolidation really is feasible and will accomplish all the goals. And so what the Michigan Municipal League Foundation Shared Services Initiative with the state does is it funds half of that study. And then the communities that are involved fund the remainder of the expense. And so we went to there's a certain protocol to be followed, and so our committee, and I'll tell you who was on the committee, the city managers of Ferndale and Hazel Park, Ed Klobuchar and Bob Bruner, who was then replaced by Mark Wollenberger when Bob left, Fire Chiefs Ray DeWalt from Hazel Park and Kevin Sullivan from Ferndale, the fire union presidents, Chris Kenny from Hazel Park and Patrick Sheehan from Ferndale, and myself as the representative from SEMCOG. But we sat down and over a series of meetings kind of hammered out what everybody's priorities were, how we envisioned this thing going, and then wrote up a proposal that was submitted to the Michigan Municipal League Foundation and then put out to bid. 3 companies responded to the bid, and the one the committee chose was the Emergency Services Consulting International. And it was chosen for several reasons. First and foremost, the committee felt that ESCI was the best qualified due to their experience with fire department consolidation. Many of their consultants on their team have experience in the fire service as firefighters and as chief officers. Some have experience as elected officials, and so they understand all the nuances that go into running a fire department, all of the regulations that fire departments must abide by. And so we felt that they were much more qualified than the others, in as much as they didn't have any public safety personnel on their teams that would be coming in to conduct the study. Second, and probably one of the most important items, in addition to them being the most qualified and the most competent in our view, was the cost. They actually came in as the lowest bid of the 3 that put in for the bid. Their cost that they bid out was for $43,517. And so with the Michigan Municipal League funding half of that, the remainder that each community needs to commit to would be in the neighborhood of $12,000, and so that's what we're asking for. It's a little over the 25%, but we figured we would build in a few $100 for any unexpected expenses, so we wouldn't have to come back to you for those small amounts should they occur. But you have ESCI's proposal. It was sent to you via email. So the next step in the process is for the municipalities involved to commit to funding their portion of the study. The way this program works, you will not be contracting with ESCI. The MMLF, Michigan Municipal League Foundation, will be the ones executing the contract. You just have to commit to your portion of the funding. It's important to note that at no time throughout this process do you lose control over what's going on in your community. The state doesn't come in, the Michigan Municipal League doesn't come in, SEMCOG doesn't come in and take this process over. ESCI will do the study. They will make their recommendations. They come in with no preformed ideas as to what would work best here. It will all be as a result of what they discover once they get here. And then once the study is presented to you, it's entirely up to you as to whether you adopt all of it or part of it or none of it. So some would say, why spend this money on a study? Because consolidating 2 organizations as complex as the Ferndale and the Hazel Park Fire Departments with all that they do and making sure that everyone's priorities are addressed is a monumental task. And these people are expert at doing that. They come from the outside, so there's no preformed opinions, no biases, and they will present you with an accurate picture of what you need to do next as a community to continue to provide fire protection and EMS services to your citizens. So that's basically what we're requesting is approval of the resolution. Do you have any questions for me that I can answer for you?
Are there questions for Mr. Riggs?
Through the chair, yes. On the shared service initiative in one of the presentations for our attachment, it has how to access technical services, and it says step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yes.
Step 1 is develop concepts and engage stakeholders. Step 2 is develop the business case and the case and to develop the implementation plan, and then step 3 is the actual implementation.
Correct.
Where are we with you here today, asking, for us to approve this, where do we fall within these three steps?
We've completed step one. We've identified the opportunity. We've contacted the local stakeholder groups, which is the municipalities of Ferndale and Hazel Park, the administration of the respective departments, and the union officials of the respective departments. Those are the stakeholders that we've engaged. We've agreed to the concept over the months of meetings that we've had. SEMCOG has submitted the pricing request form. We are now at the point in step one where we are to receive local approval by the council or board to proceed with the proposal and pay 50% of the technical services split between the participating locals. So that is the step that we are now. Once that is done, step two goes fairly quickly. The locals then submit to the MMLF the resolution of approval, the signed proposal agreement form, and the 25% total cost of the technical services, at which point MMLF will sign the contract with the service provider, and then the service provider begins the study. So we're right at the conclusion point of step one. The beginning of step two will go rather quickly once we've completed that, and then the study gets going, and then however long the study takes to bring the issue back to you for the implementation, step three.
Right. And at the end of that study, the study could say there is financial savings, or there's not financial savings, or this is how the service would work in the future, even if there isn't financial savings. So I've always been taught that sometimes when you merge departments, you're not always realizing, you're not decreasing costs. So that could be cost neutral or cost a little bit more. That's my understanding of how these studies uncover. So is that the case?
Yes, that is the case. Of course, we're hoping for savings. But the savings may not be large. Both departments are run pretty lean. I believe your department has already had some staffing reductions. Hazel Park is not overly staffed, and that's where in these scenarios the large expenses come from, of course, is staffing. I think the big advantage to this, if the study shows that this is what's feasible, and from my experience, what seems would be feasible, and again, the study is going to tell you what it is, but from my experience, what would be feasible is the formation of an authority between the two municipalities that would be voted on and approved or rejected by the citizens, and that would stabilize the funding source. So it wouldn't be as volatile as it is now, trying to work it out with the rest of your city-wide budget. It would have its own funding source that would be stabilized, approved by the voters, and then the authority just functions on its own. And that may result in some savings. There certainly can be some savings in just in volume as far as apparatus purchase, as far as building maintenance, as far as a single administration instead of two administration. But as far as boots on the street, as far as firefighters go, it's probably not going to result in any decreased level of staffing because you're run pretty lean at this point. That's my opinion. We'll have to wait and see what the study says. But in my opinion, you will get some savings from the volume discount of combining the two, but the biggest benefit is going to be a stabilized funding source in the terms of an authority. And that the priorities, that was one of the first things we did, was try to sit down and establish what the priorities were of the stakeholders involved. And of course, the big priorities for everyone was to improve or at least maintain fire and EMS protection among the communities. And secondly, to stabilize the funding source and to get it out of the city budgets that are causing the city budgets to have so much difficulty. And then thirdly, to do all we can to protect and maintain the status of the employees that have dedicated their working lives to these communities. So those are our priorities, and we'll see what the study reflects.
And one final comment. I have to say, Mr. Riggs has been phenomenal. He's been an excellent facilitator, and I feel very lucky that our two cities have been assigned Mr. Riggs to help us navigate these difficult discussions and negotiations and figuring out a new model.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And just know that SEMCOG is here as a partner for you for the long haul to get this implemented and to stabilize this whole situation as best we can.
Am I correct in understanding that Hazel Park has approved this earlier this week?
That's correct.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions of Mr. Riggs at this point? Not at this point. All right. And this is on the agenda. Are you going to be able to stick around to
Yes.
until we
Yeah, I'll
vote on
stick.
this? Thank you.
Okay.
In case there's additional questions, thank you, Mr.
Thank you
Riggs.
very much.
Very good. All right, the next item of business is the call to audience. Call to audience, as most of you know, is up to 30 minutes now and more time needed at the end of the meeting. I ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes or less on any issue that is not on the agenda, as you will also have an opportunity to comment on the agenda items at that time. Give us your name and your address, or write it on the sign-in sheet for our clerk's information. We're going to start at 8:16 and do 30 minutes of call to audience. And
Good evening, City Council. My name is Evan Sissel, on behalf of the Ferndale Environmental Sustainability Commission, and I'm here to present this month's green tip. Snow melt and water quality tips for protecting our water. When snow melts, it is merged with stormwater, which is water that doesn't soak into ground or other porous surfaces. It is carried untreated from your storm drain to nearby lakes, rivers, and streams. The presence of chemicals and other pollutants like fertilizers, pesticides, and fluids from any vehicles that are found in your yard, driveway, etc., are carried in the stormwater to nearby water bodies where they impact the water quality and the wildlife that depends on it. In order to be a good steward of our lakes, rivers, and streams, as snow begins to melt and springtime approaches, residents should take the following tips into consideration. First, make sure all pet waste is picked up and discarded properly in a timely manner. Make sure all storm drains are clear of leaves, trash, and other matter. Pick up the area around your home. Make sure all debris is discarded responsibly or recycled. Direct gutter spouts away from paved areas and onto lawn surfaces. Remember that pouring anything down a storm drain is illegal. Sweep up any extra sidewalk salt that was used during the winter for de-icing off your sidewalks or driveways, and etc. Properly and cautiously clean up and dispose of any spilled chemicals or contaminants. Fill a rain barrel or garbage can with snow and use the melted snow to water hose your plants. Check your car for any fluid leaks. Wash your car on your lawn or inside of your driveway. And if you choose to fertilize your lawn this spring, make sure to use phosphorus-free chemicals, as they are banned in the city of Ferndale, I believe. And do not overuse the product. For more information, please contact the Ferndale Department of Public Works or visit the Clinton River Watershed website to read about what you can do to manage stormwater on your property and protect the water quality all year round. The website is www.crwc.org. March or any other green tip will be found on the city's website, ferndale-michigan.com. And also the Ferndale Environmental Sustainability Commission is on Facebook.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
And for
I
all the
appreciate
good
it.
work you're doing. Thanks.
Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening, Sherry Wells, 315 West Troy. A reminder that the next meeting of the Downtown Neighborhood Association will be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and the church that is hosting us this time is the First Baptist Church on Pinecrest, just north of 9 Mile Road. One of the congregants has offered to supply the light refreshments because she very much enjoys baking. Our speaker will be Michelle Foster for the Ferndale Time Bank, and this woman, Shirley Wade, realizes that her love of baking is one of the services that she could put in that time bank, so she's looking forward to that too. So that will be free, open to the public. You don't have to live just in the downtown neighborhood area. The time bank is such a wonderful community idea that we want everyone to at least hear about it. And as I said before, you're going to be able to list 6 services you can offer and 6 that you would be interested in very easily. This is a new one. The Rotary Club is having its annual spaghetti dinner. This is on April 14th, which is a Thursday night. We normally meet on Thursday nights. This is, if you don't have your taxes done by April 14th, file an extension and come have dinner with us. Spaghetti, meatballs and meatless, salad, beverages, desserts, and very good company. The starts at 5 o'clock, goes to 8 o'clock. It's at Blooms by J.R. Designs, 503 East 9 Mile Road, corner of Paxton. And $7 for those over 60 and under 10, and $10 for the rest, and you will get your dinner's worth. The money goes for scholarship awards for our high school students at both high schools, as well as to finish off wiping polio off the face of the earth.
Thank you, Sherry. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Catherine Hirschberger, 750 West Maplehurst. Come, I think, May 13th, I will be a 35-year resident. 2 or 3 things that I want to mention and get it all in on time. This week I received a piece of paper that I really appreciate. It is my application for an absentee ballot. Anyone over the age of 60 in this city can call City Hall, an application will be mailed to them, and when they return it, a ballot will be mailed to them. They do not have to go to the polls, stand around, walk, hunt for a parking spot, whatever. I encourage that. I also encourage people to become very aware about the ballot issue that's coming up on May the 3rd. I am aware that Council will be preparing 2 budgets. One budget is going to be if the ballot passes. The other budget will be if it doesn't. I just checked tonight, budget hearings start on a week from Wednesday, which will be the 23rd at 6 o'clock, and I assure that they're here in council chambers. I encourage people to come and listen to the budget. Your council is going to have to face some mighty tough decisions, either way, if it passes or if it doesn't. But I want people to be aware of what it's going to mean to them if this ballot does not pass. Because if we thought this year was tough, next year can be tougher. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Matt Nowatzik. I live on 226 East Oak Ridge, and I am here to address the citizens of Ferndale and let them know why I think it is imperative that we vote yes to the Headley override on May 3rd. I've only lived in Ferndale for 5 years. However, I think of myself as part of the new Ferndale. I moved here to be close to the bars, but now find myself raising a family here. It's true. That's why I moved here. But I think if we want to continue to see families move into this area, if we want to see new families move to Ferndale, we need to do the following. We need to keep our streets safe and clean. We need to give our seniors a place to go and children to go after school. And we need to celebrate diversity and inclusiveness. Points 1 and 2 are easily accomplished. They simply require us to fund our police and fire as well as the KULIC. We can continue to do this with a yes vote on May 3rd. It is noteworthy that this 3 mil increase will generally not increase anyone's taxes from years prior. I know it's a case-by-case circumstance, but generally. We need to avoid the spiral that is caused at times like these with declining tax bases and people spewing fear. When we underfund vital services, our tax base continues to decrease as people don't want to live here and don't want to move to our city. In conclusion, a yes vote is a plan for a financially sustainable future. I implore the citizens of Ferndale to continue to make this city a beacon of hope in southeastern Michigan with a yes vote on May 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Steve Kuzmanovich, 2037 Livernois. I'm a 37-year veteran of the fire service. I retired in 2009. I've got a couple points I want to make here tonight. First one being that I understand we were awarded a SAFER grant to bring back 4 laid-off Ferndale firefighters. From what I've read in the paper and heard otherwise, I think the city council's sitting on this. They're sitting on their hands on this issue. We need to bring this forward. We need to get this done and get these guys back to work. That's number one. Secondly, I would like to echo the sentiments of the previous 2 speakers, and I do support the Headley override issue on the May ballot. I do support that. I will vote for that. It's very imperative that we keep our city services intact, especially police and fire. If we lose police and fire, we lost it all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Phillips. I live at 594 West Breckenridge in Livernois. And I also want to know what's holding up the money. The money was from the Department of Homeland Security was delegated to the firefighters and paramedics, yet the city council sitting with the check. and it ain't made out to you. I don't know what the holdup is. It's been months that this money has been sitting around. And one other thing I'd like to bring up, when you have your May 3rd voting, I really am worried about, you have council meetings, you have your councilors are Ferndale residents, which makes sense. But I find that the departments that are making decisions, whether it's rezoning, whether it's finance, whether it's DPW, whatever head of department is, they're making decisions for residents, but they don't live here. And I would really like to have you give some thought that department heads, managers, directors should be residents, because they're making decisions for us, and they're going home to another area. Just a thought. That's it. Give the firemen in the, you know, you have to think. I've been here since '80, and it was a majority of senior citizens. And I'm sorry, but at that time we were Ferntucky, so things have advanced. There's no doubt about that. There were no children around at all. And the thing is that, I wonder if people really stop and think how old all these houses are. Going back to the 20s, 30s, 40s. Not too many brand new houses in Ferndale, unless, you struck a good thing and got a couple of empty lots. If they catch fire, it's a flash. It's gone. It's like a matchbox. And without a fire department, we're in trouble. And the houses that are being foreclosed, that are being emptied, the abandoned animals and those kinds of things, you need police, because the wrong element is they're going to start moving into these places. And I believe in neighborhood watches. You see something funny going on where people are going in a house with a truck that those people are on vacation, call police, and let's not have a city that the police don't show up till the next day, And that's what I'm worried about. We want safety, pure safety. We can all treat us as a village, and we can all watch out for each other and take care of each other. As far as, some of the city services, if something needs to get done, just do it yourself,
Thank you.
But
You're close to your 3 minutes, but if you just wrap up.
I just care about take care of the police and the fire department. That's the number one thing. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Good evening.
Kay Watson, 3209 Inman. I too am concerned about our fire department. I wish you'd explain, I had read something that you weren't sure if you were going to go ahead with this grant because you didn't know what we were going to have to do regarding the budget. But now somewhere I read that Royal Oak and Madison Heights have brought back firemen, and if they couldn't keep it up, they didn't have to repay, which we were hearing before, that if we didn't keep it and let the firemen go, the ones that we had brought back in, we would have to repay the budget or the grant. According to Madison Heights and Royal Oak, they don't have to, so I'm sure the same would apply to us. So that, in that case, that would help us to go ahead and use the grant, because they said if they couldn't keep it up, then they would just they would be stopping the grant, that there was no talk of repaying. So this would help us with what you're deciding now. How often are we offered something without strings attached? We need the firemen, so unless this is just going to add hardship with the budget to coerce the people into voting the way you want.
Thank you. Good evening.
Dennis Augustin, 1550 Spencer. Now, with this merger, should it go through, does that mean that 9 Mile and Hilton Fire Station closes? Is that how that's going to work? I mean, if we're going to merge our city services with the fire net, with Hazel Park, We're going to have one on one side of the track and one on the other side? Is that what I'm
That would be
understanding?
premature. The study will help us determine what a
Premature.
merger
20
would look
years
like.
ago, I stood up here and we talked about the same thing in better times. And the problem was the railroad tracks here. Okay? And that was just Ferndale talking about, consolidating their 2 fire departments. And that, and I mean, Ferndale already services actually 3 cities. We've got that Pleasant Ridge is a big one, but you got Royal Oak Township and Ferndale. And Hazel Park is not financially stable. And, and if you get that millage, that juicy millage infusion in May, okay, where's that money going to go to? Is that going to help support? Are we going to be able to just say, hey, we don't need to merge with Hazel Park anymore? Are we going to keep that money for our police and our fire, run our city? I mean, I get a good look at the roads over there in Hazel Park every day because I live right there on the border, and let me tell you, they ain't done nothing. They got a huge problem over there, and and it's a financial mess, worse than what Ferndale's in. And how much money are we going to have if we merge with them? How much money of our money is going to have to go to help support them because they can't support themselves? Those are questions that I got. I mean, I'd like to see some answers to that.
And I would just say that those are the questions that we're hiring consultants to help us work through, because we don't have all the answers to those questions. We'd need to know that before we decided to move forward. Thank you, sir. Good evening.
My name is Larry Mercer. I'm
like the hat.
Vice President of the Ferndale Firefighters Local. Pat Sheehan wanted to be here tonight, but he's not allowed to be here while on duty, so I am taking his spot. We have a statement we want to read to you. Through FEMA, the Ferndale Fire Department was awarded $851,000 in a SAFER grant. Acceptance of this grant would let the city bring 4 firefighters currently laid off back to work. The city has said it will not comment on accepting this grant during the current budgeting process and while the city is in negotiations with fire and police unions. The SAFER program is designed to assist cities through these tough economic times, especially those public safety departments that have been affected by layoffs. The union was hopeful the 2-year grant would help the city get through this tough economic times. In addition to the relief grant money, Local 812 has been willing to negotiate with the city since the contract expired more than 2 years ago. Our union has offered concessions. In an attempt to meet the city's bargaining demands, during negotiations, the city requested information relating to health care costs. A formal request was made to the city approximately 7 months ago. Although promised, the union has still not received this information. In addition to our city, the Ferndale Fire Department provides coverage for Pleasant Ridge and Royal Oak Township. Royal Oak Township was added approximately 5 years ago. We are also providing automatic aid to cities of Madison Heights and Hazel Park. In the past 5 years, the number of firefighters has dropped from 32 to 28. Due to our current layoffs, we are operating a staff of 24 firefighters. The staffing of the Ferndale Fire Department has dropped from a minimum of 8 guys a day to 6 firefighters a day. In the past 5 years, the numbers of runs have not decreased, but our coverage area and commitments have increased. Ferndale has 4 firefighters on layoff. The award provides for 2 years of support to cover wages and benefits. The cities of Royal Oak and Madison Heights were also awarded SAFER grants. Both of those cities have already accepted their grants. Both cities have been able to bring laid-off firefighters back on the job because of these SAFER grants. This is important, both of these cities are currently in negotiations and or Act 312 arbitration with their fire and or police unions. The SAFER grant is not supposed to be used as a negotiating tool.
And you're almost to 3 minutes.
Okay. Yep. Elected representatives of both the national and local levels have invested considerable time and effort to secure the SAFER program as they realize the importance of putting firefighters back in fire trucks. Their belief is so strong that they've changed the requirements that the local governments are required to adhere to. There is no longer any requirement to match the federal funding. There is no requirement for municipalities to keep firefighters beyond the 2-year period. The only requirement is that communities cannot lay off additional firefighters. The safety of the citizens of Ferndale is our #1 priority, followed by the safety of our firefighters. Ferndale needs safe staffing. Just a quick note to the citizens of Ferndale, Pleasant Ridge, and Royal Oak Township. Have faith in your firefighters, as we are doing our best to come up with a fair and equitable solution which will maintain safe staffing for us, but most importantly, for you. And just to end, John Schwall and Dennis Barr wanted to pass on a thank you for their awards. They weren't able to be here tonight also because they are working. Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the audience who would like to address us this evening?
You just mentioned something, now I have a question. How many fires can we handle in Ferndale at this time?
Got the chief back there, maybe he could address it, but let me just say, this is your opportunity to talk. This is not a debate period. So we want to hear your opinions at this point, Kay.
It's not my opinion, it was a question.
You can answer it as called.
I'm not debating anything, I'm asking for an
The chief is
answer.
here. If he has an answer for you, I don't want to put him on the spot. He wasn't prepared for that, but he would know better than me, Kay.
Well, only some things when you mentioned there about if they closed down the other fire station made me concerned of how many could we handle at one time. And if that's the case, how many could Hazel Park handle? Because if we shut down one station and there's numerous fires at one time, it might create a hardship. So I was just curious to know, how many fires can we handle at one time? It wasn't a debate.
Chief, is there an answer to that?
Yeah, the answer would be one right now. Currently, it takes about 12 firefighters or staff national standard, and that's been that way even when we had an 8-man minimum. We still have to call in auto aid and mutual aid to obtain that. If we had more than one fire, mutual aid would be called in, and they would help us address the subsequent fires at that time.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know, and I hope you would consider before you even consider if we went in with Hazel Park closing the other station, because the other station might be needed either way, Hazel Park or Ferndale. Just don't jeopardize the residents.
Thank you. Additional comments? Additional comments? Then I am going to call the audience. And just to be clear so that everyone understands, we're not ignoring our guests and visitors and speakers. This is their opportunity. We give them the full 3 minutes, and at the end of the meeting, we have a call to council, and anybody on council who would like to address any issue is free to do so at that time. So just don't want you to think we're ignoring our speakers, but this is the audience's time to speak, and not ours. We get a lot of time to speak. All right, next order of business is our consent agenda. All of these items are considered routine by the City Council and are enacted in one motion. And let me tell you what is on the consent agenda this evening. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the special and regular meetings held February 28, 2011, and the special meeting held January 6, 2011. B is approval to adopt a proclamation welcoming community living services to the City of Ferndale. C is approval to adopt resolution recognizing former Ferndale resident and 2011 Super Bowl champion T.J. Lang, as submitted by Councilman Lennon. D is approval of a resolution to contract Emergency Services Consulting International for a study on fire department consolidation. E is approval of an expenditure of approximately $8,000 for printing and publishing of the Ferndale Code of Ordinances. F, approval to reappoint Brian Cooley, Virginia Saxton, Kenneth Hattori, Matthew Himes to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And G, approval of the bills and payroll as certified by the city manager to be paid subject to review of the Council Finance Committee. Anything to be removed from the consent agenda this evening?
Do you want to pull something from the consent?
I'll pull,
Or are you just going to do
C.
it? C?
Yeah.
Item C, Councilman
Just for
Lennon
purpose of
pulls.
reading that.
I am going to, I would like to request pulling item B
And I was going to request item D.
and item D. Those items have been pulled to the regular agenda. Any other items from the consent agenda?
I would move that we adopt the consent agenda with the exception of items B as in boy, C as in cat, and D as in dog.
Moved by Baker. Support?
Support.
Support by Galloway. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Galloway?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Baker? Yes. And Mayor Coulter?
Yes, thank you very much. That passes. All right, so now on to our regular agenda, item A, consideration of amendments for the special events policy. Charlene, is this your item?
It is a combination of me and the city attorney.
All right.
There are actually three things that we are asking you to consider. The first would be the amendments to the policy, and then we have two ordinances that would follow up and make that policy part of our code. And I'll have Dan explain that because one of them actually takes parades and political demonstrations out of the special events ordinance. This recommendation is from the entire special event committee. We had a very lengthy meeting and tried to address council's concerns and tried to come up with ways to make the process more consistent and more economically fair for both the city getting reimbursed for our costs and the organizers, not making it financially feasible for them to still hold their events. So one of the first things we're recommending is the removal of the 7% administrative fee that was left over in the language from before. Since we are now trying to cover all our costs and our actual fees, that administrative fee would be extra and is no longer needed. We have agreed as a committee to recommend that we remove straight time from chargeable items. So anything that staff can do during the regular course of the day, during the regular course of our jobs, we would not charge for. That would leave us charging for overtime. We would recommend that we remove lost parking revenue from the items that can be charged to an event, and we agreed on this because we did an analysis of parking revenue for the weeks before, during, and after events, and it shows that parking revenue actually increases during the week of an event. So in effect, the organizers are covering those costs for us, so there's no need to charge them again for that. We voted to recommend that we give event organizers the option of barricading parking lots themselves. That eliminates some overtime by the DPW department. I want to make clear the distinction between barricading parking lots and barricading streets. Streets need to be closed properly by DPW and police personnel. This would just be the parking lots. The facilitator, who is Michael Larry, who is also our Dream Cruise coordinator, he has been wonderful about meeting with events up front and going over possible problems and getting everything as clear as possible before it comes to special events. He is also going to start meeting with department heads and getting their best faith estimates for what we would need to charge in order for the city to provide services for the event. The department representatives who helped Michael put together these estimates will be asked to sign their estimates so that they are a good faith estimate of the city's costs to the organizer, so they're not hit by surprises when they get their billing after the event. Obviously, if there were emergency situations during an event or some kind of situations that involved us bringing in more staff, then that would be justifiable, and the estimate might increase in the final billing, but it would have to be justified, again, to build good faith between the city and our organizers. Separate labor and accounting records will be kept for individual events. This is not usually an issue because we usually only have one event on a weekend, but we do have the Funky Ferndale Art Show and the DIY Street Festival on the same weekend, so we are going to be careful to charge those events separately for the actual services they use. Mr. Christ will explain the proposed ordinance regarding demonstrations on public property, which will take that out of the special event ordinance, and the amendments to the existing special event ordinance clarifies the regulations for processes and sets up clear enforcement of special events provisions through the police department and some other departments. So those are the recommendations the Special Event Committee is bringing you for changes to the policy.
If I
Mr. Chris, anything to add? Yeah.
Please, Your Honor. With respect to the two ordinances in council's materials, the first really affects the recommended changes of the Special Event Committee with respect to ordinance section 16-12, which addresses special events. There is a second ordinance for your consideration, which affects the definition of special event and pulls out from that definition any type of gathering, march, parade, or other gathering where there's more than 100 people, where the principal purpose is to conduct an expressive activity on the public streets, sidewalks, or public property of the city. There is First Amendment issues associated with the use by people of traditional forms which have been interpreted to include public streets, sidewalks, and property and parks. This proposed ordinance would provide a permitting process for those types of expressive activities, which is consistent with case law. It provides for a much shorter period of review and consideration by the city, and the reason for that is there's often spontaneous types of gatherings or protests or demonstrations, and cities need to timely, on a very short time frame, address legitimate police safety, traffic concerns, and provide approval where warranted. So that definition with respect to special events is pulled out, and there is a ordinance provision adding 16-14 through 16-17 of the Ferndale Code, which would address and provide for that type of permit.
All right. Are there questions from council? Not debate or discussion yet. We don't have a motion yet, but I'd entertain that as well. Mayor Pro Tem Baker.
First, thank you so much for turning this around so quickly. Event season is upon us.
Yes, it is. And I give credit to all of our department heads who made time that they didn't have in their schedules to go over this.
Speaking of time that department heads don't have, that's actually where my question comes from. I was talking with our GDA director earlier, and I don't want to put words in Christina's mouth. She can ask her own question if she'd like, but I let her know that I would ask, were there any conversations about the timelines? You know, Dan's just said that a few things needed to be pulled out because they needed to be acted on quickly. Were there any discussions about sort of that general several-month guideline where we ask people to have things in a while in advance in order to get things properly processed and meetings properly called?
Special events that expect attendance fewer than 500 people, they need to have their applications in 3 months in advance per our current ordinance. There's been no discussion of changing that. We feel that is very adequate. For larger events, where expected attendance is over 500, the current ordinance requires a 6-month deadline for submitting an application. Again, we didn't discuss that deadline. We're a little more flexible with that one, but I would have to say that 3 months for a special event, which by definition is something being held on city property, which leaves the city open to liability issues, and in the interest of risk management and protecting the city's interests and balancing the needs of the community to hold special events, I think 3 months is a fair amount of time to make sure that our ordinance is being followed, that all fire hazard concerns are being addressed. When there is liquor service involved, that all those state and federal regulations are being followed. I'm sorry?
I was just going to say notice to adjacent property owners.
Notice to adjacent property owners within 300 feet that this is occurring. And then again, you're talking about the 6 department heads who make up the Special Event Committee plus a citizen representative. We all know we're all doing more with less. It's not just police and fire who have lost employees. It's difficult to find time for us all to meet, and those are usually 2 to 3 hour meetings with the organizers to go over all the details. And then we've got DPW as well, and they're always working around snow emergencies, water main breaking emergencies, all that sort of thing. So I think 3 months is a fair amount of time for us to process an event. And to get it to council, I'm sorry, one more thing, and to get it to council
That's the other
at a
piece.
meeting that is not the last meeting before the event. Because when we do that, we put council in a bind. It becomes an either all or nothing situation if there's no time to tweak it and come back, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Galloway.
Through the chair to the city attorney, on ordinance number 1106, this is the permitting process for a demonstration. I guess we might characterize it as a political demonstration.
Any speech.
Any speech.
Not just political.
And it covers anything on sidewalks, city hall, anything that's owned by the city, including protest events, political rallies, demonstrations, speech-making, marching, etc. This requires that if am I understanding this correctly, that if someone wants to have anti-war protest, if there's a demonstration here like we have in Madison, Wisconsin, the people have to first apply for a permit, get insurance at levels that we feel are appropriate, and then, have us approve that? And is that?
Well, if there's just going to be more than 100 people, and if they're going to utilize the streets for a demonstration to that effect, the answer would be yes. The time period, obviously, under the current ordinance would be 90 days, and that is not reasonable and has been held so by federal courts. The proposal in this ordinance text would provide a 5-day period and a requirement that the city consider it on a shorter time in the event of a spontaneous type of demonstration with any type of approval to happen within 2 days of that 5-day period.
I'm sorry.
So that is the goal that is consistent with the Sixth Circuit case law on what is being deemed reasonable. But there is a provision that if it is a spontaneous type of demonstration, the city has to consider that in a shorter period, even if it's less than 5 days.
So if someone got upset about, well, whatever, wanted to stage a war protest or wanted to stage, whatever, some kind of statement about something the city council did, they would first have to submit their petition to the city hall application if they thought more than 100 people were going to be here. And if they showed up without properly approved permit, what would happen? Or what could the city
This is where they want to utilize public streets, potentially closing streets, too. I mean, it would be in violation of the ordinance. Now, if they close a street for access without getting a proper parade or demonstration permit.
But what if there were 100 people, 101 people picketing in front of City Hall, and they hadn't, because sidewalks are part of the definition of city property, and we hadn't issued a permit, or they'd applied for a permit, and we told them they needed $1 million policy or whatever it is we usually do for this type of thing, what would the city be empowered to do to those folks?
Well, the provision, like most of the city's ordinances, provides that a violation would be a misdemeanor. There is a provision regarding waiver of insurance in this section, which allows for the insurance requirement to be waived if it would preclude the applicant from using the city property for the proposed demonstration. That potentially could be the case in that type of circumstance where no notice and a very short time period is proposed. But it raises the issue that under the existing ordinance, again, the 90-day time period was deemed is not consistent. It is really archaic and addressed both fairs, carnivals, as well as the demonstrative use of public property as a traditional place to protest or express themselves.
So in Ferndale, if we pass this, it would be illegal to tell all your friends on Facebook to show up at City Hall to protest the XYZ thing in 2 hours. It would be, all those people could be issued a misdemeanor if I send out a tweet or a Facebook post saying that show up here to protest Galloway's, argument for this or the city council's action on that. And then 200 people showed up and picketed City Hall right before. We could issue all those people misdemeanors?
Well, certainly I wouldn't suggest that, but
we could.
But that is what this permitting process is designed to address, the utilization of public streets, sidewalks, and parks, and address the the legitimate public safety and traffic concerns where a parade or demonstration seeks to utilize certain public streets, traditional public forum, for a demonstrated event.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes it, good for the city, I suppose, and, but to me, that just strikes me as offensive, limited people's rights like that, but.
Well, certainly, I mean, this is the first time council's had a chance to take a look at it, and there is no requirement that council take action with respect to that component, that separate ordinance at this point, and it could be studied further. I can provide some additional materials to Councilman Galloway for his consideration of the subject.
I mean, I'm absolutely certain, Dan, I mean, I have great faith in your, legal analysis, and I'm sure that's what the law of the Sixth Circuit is, and certainly I don't think it's right for a bunch of protesters to take over, the picnic shed at Geary Park when someone scheduled a birthday party for their kid there or a family reunion. But it seems to me important that we preserve the right for people to protest and petition City Hall, even if it's not real convenient for us and our people. So I'd like to see this significantly narrowed, or I can't support it.
Councilwoman Baker.
Through the chair, I have a question for the city attorney. How does this compare to other local city ordinances? Is this something that other cities have addressed recently? Obviously, the courts have
This
weighed in
is
recently.
actually a number of communities have language that is more strict than this, and in language which I would suggest would be questionable if challenged. So this provides a framework which I believe is consistent with recent case law. But again, Councilman Galloway's points are certainly well stated and legitimate. There does have to be a fine balancing of these two issues.
Thank you.
Would it be the council's desire to remove this particular ordinance, which is not necessary to update the remainder of the special events resolution tonight, for further discussion and analysis of this ordinance, which is the second of the two ordinances that we have that are before us?
That would be ordinance 1106.
You don't have to pass a motion on that. You could just tap.
Just 1105, maybe, not 1106.
Right.
Because I'll say I'm inclined to agree with Councilman Galloway that I think the spirit of Ferndale would be that we encourage those things. I don't think even if this was on the books, we would utilize that remedy, but future councils may look differently, and we probably ought to be real clear about what we think is acceptable or not. So I tend to agree with you, Councilman.
Does the councilman want to make a motion to that effect?
Sure, let me get back here. Well, I guess initially I would move that we adopt the amended special event policy and ordinance number 1105 as presented, and refer ordinance number 1106 to the ordinance committee for further review and consideration.
Is there a second?
Support.
Councilwoman Piana seconds. All right. Any discussion now on that, removing the free speech ordinance portion of that? Back to the special events.
Yes, I have two things. One, item 3, remove lost parking revenue from items charged to an event. I think 2 council meetings ago, council, in our effort to make sure consistency and fairness, required an event applicant to pay for lost revenue. I would recommend that the city provide a reimbursement to that event, so that would be for the Blues Festival. And so, if you could do that, please?
Certainly, if council's
I'd
in agreement.
accept that as a friendly amendment.
That's a
if that's-
friendly, I would.
Sure, that's
as well.
Accept that as a friendly amendment?
Yes, that we would reimburse the Blues Festival for those for that fee. Yes.
And then my next one is that by removing, I just want to make sure I'm clear, by removing ordinance, what was it, 11? 06. Does that mean we don't have a process for parades right now? Did we remove that? So if someone wanted to do a parade in the future.
Like Pride?
Like a Pride parade?
That would not be addressed if the amendment is passed in its current form, because the definition of special event in 1105 has been modified to pull out parade, but would mean that somebody who wanted to have a parade could have a parade, because it would no longer fall under the special event provision of Section 12, Section 16-12.
Can you restate that? So they have to apply to they would not have to apply for a special events?
That's correct.
They would
Yes, that
be
they
able
would
to have
not have to apply.
So
if
that's not-
1105 is passed.
Okay.
So they just spontaneously have a parade?
So, I mean, as we currently do it, the Memorial Association every year,
Approve it, the memorial
almost every year, puts in an application. We waive almost all the things for the Memorial Association because they've been doing it for 75 years. The Dyke March comes in, and their first time to the city of Ferndale, and up to this point, we require that they submit a special event application.
Until this point, yes.
Well, I think until we do something different, I guess that was an unintended consequence for not including number 1106. So if we left the current definition of special event would encompass the parade, but would not encompass the political protest or action?
No, I'm sorry. I think you said the current definition of special.
As on the book, yeah.
As on the books right now includes everything everything where there's more than 100 people on the public streets or parks, including parades, carnivals, marches, demonstrations, carnival.
So we need to have special event incorporate the
existing definition if you wish to preserve it in its current format right now. Again, and I would just suggest council at some point will have to address that issue with respect to parades, because right now you would be requiring them to, under 1105, apply 90 days in advance.
And we're going to run
unless we did a waiver, which goes against our effort to be consistent.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
That we adopt, unless there's a practical reason not to, that we adopt the ordinances as presented. What's our process for amending an ordinance then, Dan? Does it just come back to council? Does it need to go to a larger vote? If we wanted to adopt everything as presented and then come back and essentially loosen that requirement for the 5-day notice?
You could do that at any council meeting for this type of regulatory ordinance.
Might I suggest that we adopt the policies as presented this evening, then come back at a later date, and as it seems that most of us want to essentially loosen those requirements for parades and political demonstrations, so that we're not leaving parades hanging? We're going to have a problem shortly if we leave parades hanging like this, I can tell you that much.
Yeah. Unless we choose to do a waiver. Make them apply for the events ordinance. And
if you're speaking about...
We've never done a waiver.
Not a waiver, what I'm calling.
The ordinance allows council to accept a application after the 90-day deadline under special, if it's a special situation, and you could do that by motion. I believe the applications that you're probably referring to for the Pride marches have already been submitted. We've already had preliminary conversations. It probably would not be a problem if the city attorney thought he could bring 1106 back on the 28th to just kind of hold off on processing or charging fees, and I mean, that would be another way to go.
Because that wouldn't be till June, so a 2-week
Correct.
delay for that, we could still address the potential price.
Again, they've already had preliminary meetings
already applied.
with the special event coordinator, so, you know, we're already well in the process of making sure that, you know, the health, safety, and welfare of the city is being protected.
So does that mean that 6 months is just generally not relevant, and that maybe we should re-examine that timeline when it comes to these large events? If we're going to keep accepting applications with
I
less
don't
than
believe they
6
were,
months?
the 6th month is for events expecting attendance of over 500 people. I don't
This one
believe
is
the
not.
marches were expecting that high of attendance, which puts them in the 3-month deadline requirement.
That is true.
Pride March.
That is correct.
would be less. The Pride March is expected to be less than 500 people?
That is
Yes,
correct.
that is what they are estimating. And absent any prior history for these marches, you know, we accept the estimate of the organizer.
So through the chair,
Yes.
if I may, if I understand everything correctly, and I really appreciate Councilwoman Baker's suggestion, I'm a little hesitant to apply a stricter application of an ordinance that we don't agree with to solve a problem for one event.
Okay, absolutely.
Well,
I sort of liked the city clerk's and
I
the city
agree.
attorney's suggestions better than mine, anyway.
So,
Well, what happens if tomorrow somebody watching this presentation, it's a thing, they want to have a parade of,
Something.
you know, 500 people next Tuesday, and we adopt 1105 and not 1106?
In that circumstance, they would not have a permitting requirement. The other option for council is to adopt 1105 and amend at the table here to preserve the special event definition, which would include its existing definition, which includes parades, and not change the definition of special event in 1105.
Leave the special event language in here as it currently is, that served us well for a while, recognizing that political speech concerns or other concerns raised by breaking out 1106, and refer that over to the ordinance committee for immediate review and consideration.
That's right. That way, a parade would still have to apply if it comes up next week.
Okay.
Is that an
Well,
amendment?
I think that puts us on a track towards addressing my concerns, and I'm comfortable with that. And we should just have it at the next regularly scheduled, or, well, we should probably have ordinance committee meetings sooner rather than later. I'm not sure when these regularly scheduled ordinance meetings are.
At your convenience.
Right. All right, so I suppose we have
So
a,
you need to amend your resolution?
or do we need to?
do we need to?
Well, I mean, you could take a motion on what's on the table, and if that failed, another motion could be tendered, I think would probably be the easiest rather
Do a
than.
motion to amend the definition of special events first?
Okay.
We've
Then-
got a motion on the table, so you either have to
Resolution.
amend that motion or vote on this motion.
So we could, can I amend my own motion?
That's what I'm saying, an
Okay,
amendment
so
to the motion.
I would move that we amend
Definition.
the ordinance number 1105 referred to in the main motion to include the current definition of special event in the Ferndale Code of Ordinances.
Is there support?
Doesn't Melanie have to support it again, as it's an amendment?
No, this
No,
is a
this
separate motion to
amendment,
amend the
separate
motion.
Amendment. Motion.
Support.
Support.
Thank you.
Any discussion on that, accepting the original definition of special events? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Council members Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. All right, back on the original motion now. Additional comments, questions, concerns? I would just add then that I appreciate the work of the Special Events Committee. I don't know that the city residents even know that we have one, but they do a lot of hard work. And I especially appreciate their willingness to look at what I think will make it easier and less costly in the long run for organizations to have events. We've removed a number of fees, we've streamlined things, and I hope that this, I hope our business owners feel that this helps the process. I know that in the community survey that was done, special events are very high on the residents' list of things that they enjoy about our community. So I appreciate the work, and I think this will help move us forward towards making that a more seamless process. So great job. All right, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmembers Piana.
Yes.
Baker. Yes. Galloway.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item passes. Regular agenda item B, consideration of a 2-year budget process. This is simply, I think we need to do this in a formal way, and it's appropriate, Jane Marie, that you're here, because I had made the request of our staff to ask formally if it was possible, if it was doable, what the impediments would be to Ferndale adopting a multi-year, 2-year budget, much like the state of Michigan is doing this year, and the county of Oakland has done for a number of years. And I know we've talked informally that we thought that was a doable process, but Jane Marie, if you could speak to that, and if so, we would formally adopt that this evening.
We will definitely make our best attempt at delivering what you're looking for, and I'm sure as we go through the budget process, you know, feel free to make recommendations for changes, or we can develop it along the way, you know, past that first draft to achieve what the council is looking for.
Thank you. And more discussion to come during our budget hearings, but this will just formally make our departments on notice. We're asking for a two-year budget at this point. So, all right. So I would like, I can't make that motion, but a motion would be in order to formally adopt a 2-year budget plan for Ferndale.
I would move that beginning with the next budget cycle, FYE 212, that the city of Ferndale adopt budgets on a 2-year basis.
Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Councilwoman Piana. Any further discussion, questions, clarification? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
You're way ahead of me. Councilmembers Baker.
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes.
Lennon.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
Mayor Covey.
Coulter?
Coulter.
I knew you were going to do that.
I am so sorry,
not
Mayor.
a problem at all. Yes, that item passes. Thank you.
Got to start doing this less by habit and more by reading.
Thank you very much. The next order of business would be pulled from the consent agenda. B is now regular agenda C. Approval to adopt a proclamation welcoming the community living services to the city of Ferndale. I pulled this because I think there may be people here from community living services. Why don't you come on up to the platform, if you will, and let me just, while you're coming up, let me make the residents aware that we have a new nonprofit organization right here on East 9 Mile Road called Community Living Services, and three of the officers of that organization are here. There's going to be a groundbreaking on Wednesday, I understand, which I'm going to help cut some ribbons and things. But we have a proclamation for you, which talks about all the wonderful things that you do. It's also lengthy, and so I'm going to present this to you, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and introduce your organization to the citizens of Ferndale, if you will.
Well, hi, my name is Annette Downey. I'm the Executive Director of Community Living Services of Oakland County. I'm here today with Paul Newman, our Chief Operating Officer, and Lisa Beline, our Director of Community Support. I had spoken with you a couple months ago letting you know that we had signed the lease, and we're very much looking forward to moving into the Ferndale community. So we're here today to let you know that we did indeed move to 642 East 9 Mile. We are absolutely thrilled with the building, our landlord, the location, and the city has been very warm and welcoming. As I mentioned prior when I met with you, we serve people with developmental disabilities throughout all of Oakland County. We are mostly an office of social workers, and the majority of work we do is in the community as we promote and support and encourage people with disabilities living, working, volunteering, and being active community members. We know that our commitment to inclusiveness and social equity and social justice is very much shared by the city of Ferndale, and we're absolutely thrilled to be your new neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to introduce your colleagues, or your colleagues, if you'd like to introduce yourselves? Or?
Lisa Beline, I'm the Director of Community Supports here, and I'm a resident of Ferndale and absolutely thrilled that our business has moved here.
Thank you. Welcome, Lisa.
And I'm Paul Newman. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Community Living Services. Our headquarters are in Wayne, Michigan.
Thank you. And I do also have a proclamation for you, so let me just. Thank you very much. Look forward to Wednesday as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next order of business, removed from the consent agenda C, approval to adopt a resolution recognizing former Ferndale resident and 2011 Super Bowl champ T.J. Lang. Councilman Lennon.
I'll read this. It is with genuine respect for his accomplishments as a member of the Super Bowl champion Green Bay Packers that we, the elected officials of his hometown, extend this recognition of honor to offensive lineman T.J. Lang, a 20-year Ferndale resident. Thomas John Lang, Jr. was born September 20th, 1987 in Royal Oak, started playing football at age 8 for the Berkeley Steelers. He played for White Lake Lakeland Broncos during grades 6 through 9. He then transferred to Brother Rice High School in Birmingham, where he started every game and showed his versatility by playing on both the offensive and defensive lines. T.J. earned All-State honors in his senior year and was team captain. He was captain of the Detroit News All-State football team in 2004. He went on to play at Eastern Michigan University on a football scholarship where he majored in criminal justice. He played 47 games during his college career, first as a defensive lineman before converting to the offensive side and starting his last 3 seasons at tackle. TJ started in the last 36 games of his college career, and in his senior year at Eastern, he was team captain, earned first-team All-MAC honors, and was a super sleeper team selection by the NFL Draft Board. TJ became just the 3rd draft pick from Eastern Michigan University in the Green Bay Packers franchise history, and the first in 37 years, when he was drafted in the 4th round in 2009. He was a draft pick number 109 overall and the Packers' first pick after the 1st round. He played 3 different positions during an impressive rookie season and became the first Packers rookie to start consecutive games at left tackle since 2000. TJ impressed the coaching staff with his readiness to play multiple positions and as a special teams. It is his versatility and team spirit that let him play in all 17 games of his rookie season and of all the playoff games of the 2010 season, including Super Bowl in Dallas, Texas on February 6, 2011, when the Packers became the Super Bowl champions and a victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ferndale prides its hometown Super Bowl champion hero is exceeded only by that of TJ's family, father Tom, mother Lynn, sisters Megan, brothers Zach, Trent, and Garrett, and many friends and fans. I spoke to TJ during the week. He cannot make it today, as football is now not just played during the winter. It's a 12-month operation, so he's kind of all over the map. But he considers Ferndale his home. So he is quite honored. He wanted to extend thank yous to everybody.
Great. So do you move that proclamation?
I go, yes. Do I have unanimous support for this?
Support.
Thank you.
I would move also, if I could, Mayor, that we approve the proclamation for community living services.
Thank you. I didn't do that, right. And is there a second for that?
Second.
Permit unanimous support? Thank you very much for catching that.
It wasn't me, it was the city attorney.
All right, our final regular agenda item is approval of a resolution to contract Emergency Services Consulting International for a study on fire department consolidation at an amount not to exceed $12,000, which represents approximately 1/4 of the cost to conduct a study that will spell out the current conditions, opportunities for cooperative effort, recommendations for full or partial consolidation, and a plan of implementation for full or partial consolidation of the Ferndale and Hazel Park Fire Department. Is there a motion?
So moved. I would move.
Moved by Councilman Galloway. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilwoman Baker. And Councilwoman Piana, you pulled this from the agenda. Do you have anything that you'd like to add to our previous discussion?
Do I have it? I did pull it tonight. And I'm not coming to the reasons why. I am so sorry.
Well, I didn't mean to
but-
put you on the spot. We can
Yeah,
start with Councilmember
sorry,
Baker.
go
That's
ahead.
all right.
I'll start. We had several residents, and I guess I'm always a little bit frustrated when we have called audience and the council doesn't respond at called audience, and then everyone kind of leaves. So we don't have really any chance to address citizens' questions, but I'll take the chance nonetheless, even though they're not here. This contract and study with ESCI and the Michigan Municipal League and our partners in the city of Hazel Park will really help us to look before we leap, so to speak, into any type of service sharing agreement, which would still, even under sort of ideal circumstances, be several years down the road. From what I understand, this is not something that's happening overnight. There were several residents who asked questions about how many fires could we fight, how many firefighters would we have, what are the financial implications for both cities, and that is exactly why we are doing this study. This is a study that is supported by the leadership in the city, the fire departments, and the fire unions from both Ferndale and Hazel Park. This is a study service that was chosen with full participation of all of those leadership teams, and hopefully will produce a very strong product for us. So I'm personally very excited to get started with this, and very interested to see if, although there may be some upfront implementation costs, which we've always been told, and I think we've anticipated, whether this will really help us save money down the road. I think we're all hoping for it. I know that our neighbors in Hazel Park are very much hoping for it. I'm just anxious to get going. So I'm ready to vote on your motion.
I have my questions. Yes. Other than this expenditure, are there any other expenditures that we should plan for or expect prior to implementation of the go-no-go decision? Is this truly the only upfront cost at this point, other than staff time and getting together?
Yeah, other than staff time.
Other than staff time.
And it will require a fairly significant amount of staff time, primarily of the fire administration, to gather the information needed for the study. But no, other than that, once the report is made, then it will be time to spend some dollars in the implementation. But prior to the go or no-go decision, no, just staff time to complete the study.
Excellent. And can you explain your role specifically as it relates to this study? So MML is administering the contract.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And working with them to provide the study with us. So
yes.
What is your role?
My role at this point, my role as defined by the Shared Services Initiative was the initial role, to get the parties together, to get them talking and to agree on a concept, and then to submit the proposal. So as far as the Shared Services Initiative, my role is pretty much completed. Okay. I would also continue, though, since you're both SEMCOG members, to participate in the whatever plan you decide to implement. I would most likely be a part of that implementation and helping to get that done. I do come with a certain level of expertise. I spent 30 years in the fire service. I retired as the assistant fire chief from West Bloomfield Township, where I did perform one of these mergers with the West Bloomfield Fire Department and the Tri-Cities Fire Departments to put that whole thing together. And so I come to the table with some experience in that regard. And so therefore I'm SEMCOG's public safety consultant in things such as mergers or collaborations or efficiencies. And so as a SEMCOG rep, I would continue to work with the parties involved. And many times throughout the process, I've kind of been the neutral party that tries to bring them together, because as with any emotionally charged situation, and make no mistake, a fire department merger is an emotionally charged situation, you need somebody that can kind of step back and bring the sides together, cool them off, bring them together again, and keep the discussion going. And that's the role I've been filling and would anticipate that I would continue to fill.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Well, I guess I would add just a couple of things. First of all, one of the people in the audience earlier brought up the millage and whether we would still need to do this in the millage. My opinion is we absolutely would, that service consolidation and these sort of cost-sharing things are the wave of the future, and the millage isn't a panacea for all of our ills. And so I think this council will continue to explore all of these sort of opportunities, whether the millage passes or not.
Yeah, Hazel Park finds themselves in the same situation where they need to, like Councilwoman Baker said, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
And there may need to be a stopgap millage to fund the continuing operations of the fire department while this goes through the process. I would imagine it would be put on the ballot when it would come time for the fire authority millage, that the millage that is in effect for the fire department would be sunset upon approval of the millage for the fire authority. But yeah, there's going to need to be some type of stopgap funding put into place while this whole process goes on.
Another point I would make is that this is not some sort of underhanded attempt to reduce staffing. I think, as you pointed out very well, both cities are staffed at as lean as we want to be, and the primary benefits of this are not to reduce staff. It's to stabilize funding, as you said. If there is revenue realization, it may be that Governor Snyder may reward us in terms of revenue sharing if we do these cost sharings, and that would be a bonus. But I want to reiterate that this particular contract and resolution had the support of the fire chiefs and the union leaders. So this phase of study is supported by both management and labor, if you will, in our environment, and so it's worth pursuing. I appreciate the fact, Councilwoman Piana, that you found us funding to pay for half of the grant. I think that I want to make sure the residents are aware that normally this would have cost us $24,000 in consulting fees, and through your efforts, through the MML, we're going to get half of that paid for. I don't know how many other communities have been able to take advantage of that yet.
There haven't been
I
many.
think we're one of the very first.
You
so
are.
we are always looking under every rock to find dollars for these sort of things. And lastly, I just want to point out there was some talk about closing fire stations. That is just. That's not, I mean, we're not anywhere near that. And my guess is that it wouldn't even be necessary, that we would require the fire stations, but I don't want to presuppose that either. So there was some talk as if that was a done deal, and that is very premature.
No, you're certainly correct in that.
Fabricated is what it is. It's not premature, it's fabricated.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak ahead of the study either, but in my experience, both as a consultant and as a fire chief, you're going to need that station that's in the middle as responses go in both directions. So I would be extremely shocked if they recommended closing that station.
As would I. I'm disappointed. Thank you. All right, so that's all I have to say. Any further comments or questions of council?
One final one.
Yes.
You said phase 2 would go quickly. Quickly means that the study will be done November.
Well, it'll go quickly to get the study going. The study itself, in the proposal, they have a timeline. Let me see if I can find that.
I think it was end of November that we would expect the study.
Let me see if I can put my fingers
Did I
on that.
read that right?
I should have anticipated that, I'm sorry. Because I know I would want to know how long it's going to take if I were you.
Mid-November 2011. It's on the last page.
All right, so I did see. So
Okay.
we should
Thank
expect.
you.
Report to council
Report to
in
council is
December.
In December? Okay.
Or through January.
Yeah, some of the other bids that we received promised to do the study quicker, and we know everybody's in a hurry, but we thought that would be a sacrifice, to try to get it done quicker. We'd rather it take a little longer and get the right study.
Excellent. Thank you
Anything else?
very much for coming tonight.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmembers Galloway?
Yes.
Lennon?
Yes.
Piana?
Yes.
Baker?
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item passes. We are now at the point of the agenda of our council liaison reports. We heard from the 8 Mile Boulevard Association today. Michigan Suburbs Alliance, any report?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
South Oakland Mayors Association, nothing this evening. SEMCOG,
We kind of heard from them tonight.
Well, fortunately. Transportation Riders United, any reports from them? Woodward Avenue Action Association, any reports?
I don't know if it's under true or not, but I think today's the last day of comment for the Michigan or the Woodward Light Rail. I don't know if that's 5 o'clock or midnight, but I think it's Woodward Light Rail at DetroitMI.com. And I think the best practice is the main line option A down the center of the road. So you can comment on that if you like.
All right. Well, the Michigan Suburbs Alliance submitted written recommendations on behalf of our cities. I will send it to you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Call to council. Police Chief Collins, how are you, sir? Anything for us tonight?
Very little, Your Honor. I just wanted to remind all the citizens that Thursday is, as Councilman Lennon knows, it is St. Patrick's Day, so we want to make sure that everybody has a safe St. Patrick's Day. Please don't drink and drive. It's a long day. People typically begin to drink early in the day. Have a good time, but please don't drink and drive. And I believe that Councilman Lennon will have please return to us pinned to a shirt somewhere. So just
No, actually, I got to work that night, so I won't be participating in anything.
Just as a note to the public is that we will be out there in force. We hope everybody has a good time, but we do want everybody to stay out of a car if they have too much to drink. Thanks.
Great reminder. Thanks, Chief. Chief Sullivan, Fire Department, anything this evening?
Nothing, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Julie Hall, Parks and Rec.
Just a couple of things this evening. We do have a few spots left for spring soccer for those who haven't registered, and we've already begun registering for our baseball and softball. And lastly, but most important, Jill Stricker submitted a nomination for one of our youth sports coaches, Andy Batten, as Youth Sports Coach of the Year through Michigan Recreation and Parks Association. And Mr. Batten was awarded that honor, so he will be attending a banquet with Jill Stricker on Wednesday evening in Lansing to accept his award. So congratulations to Mr. Batten.
Very good.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Julie. Our city clerk, Sherlyn, anything else for us this evening?
Actually, I do. I just wanted to thank council. You took time to speak with me this week. It was a rough week and a lot going on. I'm sorry, this was last week. I didn't really have a weekend. But I appreciate that I am able to talk to you and that I get your feedback. And mostly, I appreciate your support of me in my office. So just, you are a pleasure to work for.
Well, you did the right thing, I think, too.
Thank you.
You guys are swamped right now.
Thank you. Jean Marie, welcome to the table tonight. Not that you're a stranger here. Anything to report from the city manager's office? So the residents know Mark Wallenweber is off this evening, and so Sherilyn is ably filling in.
Jane Marie.
What did I say, Sherilyn?
Sherilyn.
Jane Marie, excuse me.
I don't want to.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing else, thank you. Dan Christ.
I will get together with the ordinance committee shortly, and we'll try and rework that issue concerning special events for next council meeting.
Excellent,
and
thank
that's
you.
it.
Good, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Kate Baker, anything for called council this evening?
First, I'm particularly enjoying the 50-50 ratio of women to men at the council table this evening. I would like to note that. I'm always in favor of seeing more smart women at the council table. Welcome, Jane Marie. The second order of business is happy birthday to Councilwoman Melanie Piana.
Thank you.
People have been asking me how old you are, and I just say...
I'm 39 times over.
Yes, I think she's old enough that I'm not telling.
I'm sorry, I don't even know my own age. No, I'm 38.
I was just saying,
I'm not
39.
That's my sister.
Okay, now you've told, so it doesn't matter.
That's okay. Really, 30. I'm 30. You're 30.
Yeah.
We'll just,
Went up 40.
We'll just keep celebrating your 30th birthday. So, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I have a question for the city clerk. I wonder approximately when the absentee ballots are going to mail. We have an election coming up, I do believe.
We do have an election coming up, May
You've been a
3rd.
little busy.
AV ballots have to be available by March 19th. The county is putting in the order for the entire county. We have not received those ballots yet. We have mailed out the AV applications to our permanent AV list, and we're starting to get those back. Short answer is not before the 19th. Soon after the 19th is possible.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
The Ferndale Education Foundation dinner has already been announced, so relieves me of that duty. I do definitely have tickets and raffle tickets, although I don't have them with me tonight, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, I wanted one.
I know, my mom's hawking them for me tonight. I'm trying to work even while I'm here. The last comment this evening is that there is no such thing as federal money without strings attached. You can simplify it and oversimplify it as much as you want. But Royal Oak is Royal Oak, and Madison Heights is Madison Heights, and Ferndale is Ferndale, and any of our residents would tell you that. We are all in different budget positions. We are all in different staffing positions. We are working very hard to address the question of this SAFER grant. But to oversimplify something to the point of saying that there's no consequences if you lay someone off. You don't have to pay anything back. It's just not true. It is easier. They've made it easier, so they say. I've talked with folks in Senator Stabenow's office who say that it is still a beast. It's very difficult to appeal based on any type of hardship if you accept a SAFER grant and then subsequently have to relay someone off. Everything that I've heard from the feds is that it's very difficult to appeal that, even though there is now at least a process in place. So please, folks, let's use our critical thinking skills. Just ask any of us from FernCare. There is no such thing as federal money without strings attached. So we're doing our best, and hopefully we'll have a resolution to that very soon.
Thank you. Councilman Lennon.
I want to wish everybody a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day, and yes, I received your text, Captain, or Chief, and I am not going out for St. Patty's. I do have to work. Last week, regarding this TJ Lang thing, it was reported that it was open, Elks is open to the public. It is not. It's just a family event due to LCC regulations. The public can't show up. They didn't apply for their license, et cetera. And that's about it I got right now. Nice, well-run meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Piana.
Yes. I would like to put out for discussion or direct the city staff to consider coming up with a Facebook policy. I know last year council was talking about doing an external communications plan, and with the changeover in city leadership, that was kind of put on hold, as well as looking at our goals and objectives for this year. We should have started in January or February, but with the, again, new mayor and interim city manager put on, I wouldn't say put on hold, just delayed a few months. So, but I recognize an immediate need and desire by our residents to have more information coming out from the city using Facebook. And we have multiple departments having their own Facebook page, and I don't necessarily know if that's the best approach to managing the information pushed out from the city. So I would like the city to consider how to put together a City of Ferndale Facebook page and what information is getting pushed out from that. There are a lot of protocols and policy recommendations, best practices that are put forth by a ton of multiple agencies.
We discussed it last week.
And and who would be the master Facebooker, all these things that need to be considered. What do you post, what don't you post, and that type of thing. So I will push it to the staff to consider, but I think I would like you to recommend to us the time frame in which it can be implemented.
So probably through the city manager's office, Jamie, if you would carry that back, I think that's a
Right.
wonderful idea. We should be consistent and make it as easy as possible for our residents to find
Yeah.
that information. So
Yeah, well, my interest is here, knowing that we still need to do the external communications plan. This is one component I see of it, but I see an immediate demand or an increase in demand to have this portion done. So that's
Excellent.
kind of how I see the bigger picture of this, so. Thank you.
Excellent. Anything else?
Yes, I do want to mention something that was brought up tonight about possible crime increase or with the changes going on in our police department or fire department. And I want people to let people know that we take this very serious, and that because we are looking at these difficult financial choices, our shared interest is always about saving jobs and providing the highest quality of service. That when I hear people say that crime is going to go up, I immediately say, we need to prove it, and how. And so going to data-driven crime statistics to make sure that we are devising the right strategies to tackle any changes to our crime statistics. And so I take a very data-driven approach here, and so if it does go up, it needs to be proven, so that council can, and the police department and the fire department can make strategic, well-informed decisions about how to tackle any changes that is outside of what we normally deal with. So just saying it's going to become or be less safe is not an argument that wins with me. It has to be proven. So that's my statement.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Galloway.
Yes, coming up in a little bit over a month is an election that's going to be very important to the medium and long-term, or short and medium-term viability of the city of Ferndale. That's the May 3rd Headley override vote. A lot of the things that we've been doing up here for a long period of time, including some of the things that were discussed today, directly hinge on that May 3rd election. So information for why we're asking for a Headley override can be found on the City of Ferndale's website. If you go to the home page, there's a Financial Planning Committee agendas and minutes. If you click it, you'll see the presentation to council that was made on January 10th and the January 10th final report that explains our current financial situation and how we hope to get out of it with a Headley override. The gentleman from SIMCOG, I think, put it best in that this Headley override is really going to serve, hopefully, as a stopgap measure until we can come up with new ideas for service delivery within the city of Ferndale and South Oakland County. It's not something that happens overnight. We can't snap our fingers, and I wish people in Lansing recognize that, but apparently they don't. So we're moving as quickly as we can, but we need time to fund our current operations, and that's part of what the Headley override vote is about. But there's excruciating amount of detail here, and of course the city managers presented on it, or the former city manager presented on it several times. One of the things, and the uncertainty surrounding the Headley override is in fact one of the reasons why we haven't acted on the SAFER grant. That grant has not been rejected. In fact, the grant language itself expressly contemplates an extended period of time to accept or to reject it. As I understand the grant, that period of time to accept or reject runs about through the best portion of the budget process. So we'll be well within our time if we figure out the budget, if negotiations with the union go well. In the Ferndale 115, there's a story that indicated that the union wants to do anything possible to make the city of Ferndale fiscally viable. Perhaps they'll give us a call tomorrow and come up with their new proposals. But we're not rejecting anything. It's just that there's a lot of uncertainty with the millage vote, union negotiations, arbitration, and I think the most, the worst thing we could do would be to accept that money prematurely and get firefighters who have been laid off to totally upend their plans, whether that were another job that they secured, decision to move out of state, or just to stop looking for another job under some sort of false impression that because they were being called back according to a SAFER grant, they had a job for 2 years. That would not be the case if we were to accept that SAFER grant now, and it would be perhaps a situation where they came back for a few weeks and then were laid off again. That's not fair to the firefighters and their families that need to move on, and we still have plenty of time to accept this if things come together. So we're working hard up here to keep the city safe and fiscally viable, and we need people's help on May 3rd.
Thank you, Councilman. And I guess I am last. I just have a couple of quick things. Number one, the city was notified that if you're a WOW cable customer, there's going to be some changes to your service, and I want to give you a heads up. They're moving a number of their channels to HD, and in order to prepare to do that, they have to do some work on their end, and they're going to migrate a number of your channels to other channels. And if that's ever happened to you, it's annoying for about the first month because you can't find ESPN or C-SPAN, but that's going to happen, and you're going to be notified by May 17th about when that change is going to happen to you. So if you're a WOW customer, look for a notice from WOW before May 17th about when that will happen to you. And if you're a WOW customer that has a digital converter connected to your television, you will not have to do anything. However, if you have a television set that is connected to WOW without a digital converter, you're going to have to obtain a digital converter or upgrade to their services. So this is all just a preview. You'll be hearing from WOW. I wanted you to be aware of that before it happened, and then you find your TV doesn't work. And lastly, I do want to just briefly touch on the SAFER grant, because I want to assure our residents that there's nobody in the city that wants to accept that grant, except perhaps the 4 people that were laid off, more than the 5 of us do up here. And we will accept it as soon as we can do that in good faith and good conscience and good stewards of your money. In case residents aren't aware, we are in negotiations with our firefighters. I hope we can get that done. We don't know what's going to happen on May 3rd with the millage, but I can tell you that if we don't have a very acceptable conclusion to the contract negotiations and the millage doesn't pass, I don't see any way that we could promise residents that we won't have layoffs in our fire and police departments. I don't know how else you could do it. And the grant specifically requires that we promise no layoffs. We are not in a position to do that. However, there are no financial penalties in this grant for not doing it right now. So we are hopeful that those negotiations will go well, and that the millage will go well, and that we can accept that grant. And that is our hope and our intent. So stay tuned. It's hard to hear all that stuff without being able to comment then, but I want you to know that we were as excited as anybody to get that grant, but we are also fiduciaries of the city coffers, and we can't make that commitment until we have those 2 variables nailed down. And so as soon as we know, we'll make a decision on the grant. Thank you. And with that, meeting adjourned.